Hey there, and welcome to That Bond Show, a That Nerdy Site show and the internet's number one James Bond rewatch show, hosted by two guys named Logan and Trevor. Probably. Join us as each week we dive through a new Bond film, from Dr. No to No Time to Die. I'm one of your hosts, Logan Wilkinson, and joining me, as always, is my Phoenix son, Trevor Starkey.
We have all the time in the world.
Yes, indeed, we do. A big recurring motif and theme in this film. We are, of course, talking about the 25th and most recent James Bond film, No Time to Die, which was originally released at the Royal Albert Hall Theatre in the UK on September 28th of 2021. Trevor...
After many, many delays.
After many, many days, we've in fact already done a podcast about this movie, I believe, even. What are your memories and thoughts of No Time to Die from 6 months ago?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Again, at the time, having only seen like the really good standout films of the Daniel Craig era, I thought this was a lovely kind of capstone to his five film run, basically, kind of giving us a thorough like beginning, middle, and end to this James's story. I really appreciated it, and I had a good time with it. I thought watching this before watching like all of the historical Bond stuff, I went into it with kind of the expectation from like some of the reviews and stuff of this is a very classic Bond in that like your bad guy has, a disfigured face and a super evil lair and, he's bent on world destruction kind of thing. And now, having watched the other 24 Bond movies in the lead up to this, I found myself appreciating those little elements that much more. Right. And how well I think this movie like leans into them. Like it, I don't think this one was trying to like do another Skyfall, but I think this one was like, let's tick all the boxes for what makes a Bond movie right. For Daniel Craig's last one.
Right. It's interesting. I think that No Time to Die is such an interesting Bond movie for me. Obviously, for me, but there was such a gap, right? It's the second longest gap in between Bond movies of any two films other than the one from License to Kill and GoldenEye. I think that, it is the one where Daniel Craig is just older, right? Like, and that's been a theme they've explored for his last three movies at this point now. They've really kind of focused on the idea of like an older Bond and older Craig, and like this is, I think, is the first one where like he looks older now, right? Like, especially going from I think both of us did like the jump from Spectre to No Time to Die in like a few days in our timeline because we're recording these two in particular like back to back, basically. I think you really see the 6-year gap in between him, right? And whereas for Roger Moore, who is the only other Bond who's older than Craig is here, he at least get to kind of age somewhat more naturally, right? Like every other year his films were, versus like here's a 6-year gap, here it is, and he's older now. I think I appreciate a lot about what No Time to Die does. I think we talked about this a little bit after we recorded yesterday, I think, but I think it is such an obvious companion film to On Her Majesty's Secret Service and what that film is trying to do.
Yeah.
And
it's admittedly, I knew that from some of the reviews going into it, but
or our own conversation.
I hadn't seen On Her Majesty's Secret Service at the time.
Right.
So now that I have that context, I was like, oh yeah, this is just like flashing On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So like especially with that recurring theme of we have all the time in the world. Yes. So that it's deliberately setting it up so that you think Madeleine's going to die by the end of the film, as Tracy did, and instead they pulled the reversal on that.
And I love that, especially as someone who I think enjoys, like I think we both do, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but I don't think either one of us love it to the degree that some people do, some critics do in particular. Like that movie's almost swung too far the other direction. It was like critically maligned when it came out, and now it's like swung too far to be like it's almost too critically loved now. It's like it's a nice middle Bond movie, I think. But I think it's themed and what it does in terms of like Bond's obviously romance with Tracy and that recurring motif of like all the time in the world is really beautifully done here. And like so many other things that I've written about throughout the 24 reviews and 24 episodes of this podcast, I think a lot of those ideas are just done better here, which has been kind of a recurring theme I've said for a lot of earlier Bond ideas and themes that they just couldn't fully commit to. I think they're done better in Casino Royale, Skyfall, or No Time to Die, kind of those three films in particular. And I think it's just really a beautiful story. Like I definitely have my issues with the film, which we'll get into, particularly in the first act. I have, I think, pretty big issues at the beginning of the movie still. But I think it's just a really beautifully made movie. And weirdly, like, I think you feel its length at times for sure. Like, it's a long movie. But I also think that it is like the most actiony Craig movie since probably Quantum, right? Like, it feels like an action movie in a way that I think Skyfall deliberately kind of wasn't supposed to be an action movie in the same vein. And Spectre, I think it's just sort of all over the place a little bit. And this one felt very much like a really put together, well-crafted action film. But before we get too much deeper,
I was just gonna say, like, it starts out as a horror film and then goes into an action
Yes.
film, and then we finally get to the title sequence. And then it turns into effectively what was the same plot as Hobbs and Shaw of like nanobots that can like affect your blood. Actually, I get like, because that was like the nanobots can either make you really strong or they can have a virus in them that will kill you, kind of thing. And it's also, a Metal Gear trope, I believe, as well. I remember that going around at the time, kind of thing. So it is very much like a Bondified version of action plots that we've seen a couple other times in modern media.
right.
But I mean, one of the things I think I really appreciate is, and I understand that I just appreciate this more than you did. But like with Spectre, I appreciate that it's tying everything up into like it's trying to tie up all the loose ends. It's giving Bond his moment of closure with Vesper, so we can like tie up that thing from all those years ago in Casino Royale. It ties up the Blofeld thing, and then it gives us like one last hurrah for Bond and his crew to send him off into the sunset, and
Felix
also
as well, obviously
lets his legacy like continue on with little baby Matilda.
Right. Before we get to also, I guess this is maybe the one Bond movie we could have said spoilers for at the top, but spoilers. We already ruined it, but super spoilers in this thing. Yeah. We didn't really give you a chance, but we're gonna spoil the hell out of this movie.
We've been spoiling every other movie. I don't know why we would suddenly stop and not spoil this one.
This was the first one for me. Was like, I guess this one is still so recent to where like you could theoretically have not seen the movie yet. But if you got to No Time to Die, spoiler alert, you should have. We're gonna spoil it. Running through the cast and crew, we of course have Daniel Craig back as James Bond 007 for the fifth and final time, which makes him the third longest running James Bond in terms of appearances, behind Sean Connery's 6 and Roger Moore's 7.
And he's the longest in like single tenure
longevity
time wise, right? When you don't count Connery coming back for Never Say Never Again.
Mm-hmm. If you also don't count Connery
coming back for Diamonds Are Forever, probably.
I was actually going to say From Russia with a Video Game, which technically is
that doesn't fucking count. As much as you love the games, you've said this like
it is a good game.
You talked about this yesterday, like the golden era of video games being like all of the Pierce Brosnan stuff, and you were like GoldenEye, and then you list a whole bunch of things. I was like, golden era of Bond games was GoldenEye, and that was it. Only weird people like Logan really like stuck it out and loved all the rest of them.
That's not true, but yes, yeah. In terms of years, he'd be the longest one. Obviously, helped by the fact that he's got a 6-year time gap in there. We've got Leah Seydoux back as Madeline Swan yet again. Rami Malek is here as Sefin. Lashana Lynch is as Nomi. I always get this wrong, right? I think it's Nomi.
Yeah, Nomi.
Okay. I was going to say Naomi, and I'm like, it's not right. Ben Whishaw is back as Q. We've got Naomi Harris as Moneypenny. Jeffrey Wright makes his third appearance as Felix Leiter.
Breaking the record for Felix Watch.
Little trivia section tease here, yeah. Christoph Waltz is back as Blowfield. Billy Magnuson is here as Logan Ash, the first Logan character in the Bond series. What a disappointment. And
that's really why you don't like this one, is because the first time a Logan shows up, he's a bad guy, and he's a bad guy
who kills Felix.
He's just a bland bad guy who kills Felix, and then gets
terrible.
a Jeep dropped on him.
Oh yeah. Ana de Armas is here as
brutal
Paloma,
death,
and then it is an incredibly brutal death. And Ralph Fiennes makes yet another appearance as M. It is, of course, is directed by Cary Fukunaga. In the Blast from the Past section, the president was Joe Biden. Yeah, it's weird to say that. That's how recent this is. And the prime minister was Boris Johnson. Trevor was 36 years old. It was just 7 months ago. And I was not 20 years old. I was 29 years old. Just a few months short of my 30th birthday. And the highest grossing movie for the year was Spider-Man No Way Home, a little film you might not have heard about. You can also go check out all the content for that as well. It's weird, again, because of that 6-year gap, it's weird to be like, this is the first film in the That Nerdy Side era, even though it's been around for years because of how long that time jump was. But
yep.
Yes, a 6-year gap led to all these things happening. In the trivia section, of course, Bond's retirement to Jamaica mirrors Bond author's own famous GoldenEye home, Ian Fleming's home in Jamaica, where he wrote all of the Bond novels. It's another thing that's also alluded to in Die Another Day. It also gets a shout out there, but it is very much a feature of this movie in particular, is the Jamaica setting where he retires to. As a extra little bonus bit of trivia that's not included in the doc, there is I don't even know what to call it, Legends, I guess, to use a Star Wars term, Bond novel back from the 1960s. That was basically after Fleming had died, they basically had someone come back and just write one more novel, and it was the last Bond novel for 15 years. And it basically is actually kind of cool. It is basically a journalist interviewing James Bond, and he's retired to Jamaica and is just hanging out with Honey Rider. And it's just him recounting his entire life story, basically. It's him going through all the novels. And it's a really cool, if you read any one Bond novel, read that one just because it's a really fun idea on it. And it's not half bad, but yeah, it's and all of the other books that come out and that timeline are Bond basically ghost wrote his books kind of thing. It's a really cool idea. And again, also ties into the Bond just retiring to Jamaica and hanging out with all the different people there. No Time to Die, of course, has by far the longest pre-title sequence of the entire series, clocking in well over 20 minutes. I think is a slight tease to my kind of thoughts in the film. I think you feel that length of the pre-title sequence, but it is, by far the longest. And as an extra little bonus trivia fact here, Daniel Craig has the biggest gap between pre-title sequences, with Casino Royale being one of the very shortest in the entire series, as is Spectre, only 3 minutes long each, and then also having obviously one of the very longest in No Time to Die, so he's got quite the range in his 5.
I would be curious if you know this, because this also feels like this is probably also the longest opening before we see Bond.
Ooh, the only one that would compete to it, I would say, would be either Men with the Golden Guns opening. I don't know how many minutes that is, because that one doesn't have a minute. Or the only one in the entire series that doesn't have a pre-title sequence, which is Dr. No, which very deliberately delays the kind of reveal of Bond. You go through probably 10 minutes of that movie before you get to James at the kind of casino table, because it's all of the Strange Way stuff in Jamaica, then MI6. So one of those would be the only ones that I would even come close to this. Um, that's a great question, though, Trevor. No Time to Die, of course, occupies a number of historic Bond firsts and records, including the first one, Jeffrey Wright becoming the first actor to play Felix Leiter 3 times, as well as, of course, being the first actor to die in the role of Felix Leiter as well. Take that, David Hedison, missing a leg. You've got nothing on Jeffrey Wright here. Lea Seydoux also breaks the record, becoming the first Bond series co-star to reprise the role of the female love interest for a second time in the series. Matilda, of course, is also a historic first in the Bond canon, with the character playing the first child of James Bond within the entire series history, whether film or novel,
that we know of.
That we know of, right?
I'll throw the little caveat in there of first main love interest, because we did have that one actress that played
Sylvia Trench,
the love interest in Dr. No and From Russia with Love.
From Russia with Love. Also, should give a shout out just to Maud Adams, who did, of course, play two separate, female characters, but different characters. Yes, and Matilda, and of course, this marks an unprecedented event within the entire Bond canon. This is the first canon Bond story, or even non-canon that I know of, where James Bond dies at the end of the story. Something not seen since From Russia with Love, the novel, but which was, of course, immediately backtracked on in the next Ian Fleming story. Ian Fleming famously or infamously was tired of doing James Bond stories, and so he kills off James at the end of the From Russia with Love novel. He gets hit with the poison-tipped shoe in that book, actually, and dies from it. And in the movie, they obviously changed that. And then it turns out, Trevor, we might have a single person to thank for James Bond's legacy here. It is John F. Kennedy, who in an interview said that From Russia with Love was one of his very favorite novels. That led to a massive explosion in the series' popularity. And Ian Fleming was basically pressured into making more books. A little bit like with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes, who was obviously killed and then brought back. So that's what happens when you have a president of the United States of America say that he likes your book. You have to keep making more. The Bond theme by Billie Eilish would mark the third time in a row that the main Bond theme would be winning the Oscar for Best Song.
The Sam Smith one won the Oscar?
Yes, he did. Wow, Sam Smith won the Oscar in 2015, as did Adele in 2012 for Skyfall. Two of those three are good decisions. I'll let you guess which one was the one that was not Sam Smith. And the film currently sits as the third highest grossing film in the UK ever, just barely ahead of Spider-Man No Way Home, and as one of the 5 highest grossing films in the entire Bond series canon. Even when adjusted for inflation, this is still one of the highest grossing films in the entire series history.
And that's with it coming back still in the pandemic era, like before movie theaters are like back to capacity and people are going back to the theaters and stuff.
The two movies, Trevor, above No Time to Die in the UK, do you want to take any guesses?
A Star Wars and I don't know the other one.
So one is actually a film we've already done 2 weeks ago, which was Skyfall, is the movie in second place, the first ever movie in the UK to gross over £100 million. The highest grossing film in the UK ever, though, is from 2015. It's a little film called Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, which broke Skyfall's record and then passed it by another £20 million for good measure. Movies are good, yeah, but it is. The UK, I actually really love the UK list of the highest grossing films, because it is, it is all 7 Harry Potter films. It's like 5 Star Wars movies. It's like a shit ton of James Bond films. It's a great, all right, these are just all the things I love all in one list here. It's great. Fantastic. They really like their British films in the UK. Go figure. That takes us to the 0070-second recap. And I thought it'd be a nice little fun twist. It's probably going to be the shortest one in a dozen weeks at least. Kind of bringing it full circle here. Let me see if I can't get it on one page. I can't. We'll make it work. Trevor, are you ready?
Yep.
You want to take a guess how long I'm going to get it done in?
I mean, yeah, this one does seem shorter. Let's say 80 seconds.
80 seconds. James and Madeline have a nice time together in Italy before a surprise bomb and an eye patch goon ruins the day. Afterwards, Bond puts Madeline on a train, even though it's really silly. 5 years pass, Spectre steals a scientist for nanobots, the new 007 and Felix get James to come out of retirement and go on one last ride. Bond meets Paloma, she's great. Logan Ash, not great. Felix dies, and Bond is unhappy. Bond and Madeline meet, Bond kills Blofeld by accident. Nanobots! Afterwards, James goes to Norway, and Madeline's childhood home sees a young girl who isn't his daughter, but definitely is his daughter, gets chased around by Logan Ash, and then drops a car on poor old Logie. Bond goes to Seffin's head base in a nice homage to classic Bond layers. Nanobot hijinks ensue. Madeline, new 007 who is no longer 007 Naomi, and Bond's daughter all escape. Bond stays back to deal with Seffin and all the nuclear weapons. The two fight. Bond gets injected with nanobots. Bond is able to kill Seffin, but the nanobots mean he can never hang out with Madeline and company again. He stops the bombs and then gets killed in the ensuing blast. Afterwards, the MI6 crew share a drink, and Madeline drives little Matilda around while telling her a story of her father.
It was 76 seconds.
Hey, pretty fitting.
I think you and I maybe watch different movies. There isn't a nuclear subplot to this movie. No, like there aren't nuclear weapons.
It's like the nuclear reactor thing.
No, the reason they have to bomb the silo at the end is because of like the chemicals, the biochemical warfare stuff.
Yeah.
They have to get rid of that, so they have to open the silos. But there's like no nukes there, no nuclear. It's just it was a missile silo,
whatever. Yeah, same thing.
No, very different things. There's absolutely no nuclear weapons in this one.
Trevor.
Yeah.
How many were killed?
Oh yeah, I gotta do that part. So a step down from last film's absurd 236 kills or whatever.
Damn.
But still a pretty high body count, as you rightly predicted. The total body count for this one, I'll throw it to you again. What do you want to give a guess on this one as a final?
I think this is high. I'm gonna go with like 84.
I'll give you like 3 guesses to see how close we can get. Higher than that.
101.
Higher.
125.
155. 155.
So
kills.
Not counting last week's bullshit about like, oh, there's 200 people dead in one explosion, it would have been the highest, I think.
Yeah. Possibly. I have not been like keeping track on
last week's is just such a comical amount.
Admittedly, a lot of the ones in this one are like the Spectre agents that all die at the party kind of thing. That's like 34 kills there.
People right there.
But of that 155, Bond himself has a kill count of 66 overall. Mm-hmm. Largely coming from the Spectre escape in Cuba. As well as the final
Seffin's assault,
battle, at Saffin's base. So how many of those were notable named characters? This one's a pretty easy one for you.
He kills Seffin. He kills the eye patch dude. He kills Logan Ash. They're probably going to attribute him to killing Blofeld, even though it's just like a pure. He didn't really, but they'll say Blofeld. So I will say anyone else that's named than those 4. I don't think so. So I'm going to say 4.
Yep. Those are the 4.
Nice.
Blofeld with the nanobots, Logan Ash with a truck, Cyclops with an
drops a car
with an EMP device that somehow doesn't take out his earpiece, which immediately works right after the fact.
Yeah.
And
don't worry about it.
And yeah, he shoots Saffin 3 times in the head after like brutally breaking his arm.
Yeah, all accurate. Fantastic. Okay, very good. Trevor.
Yeah.
What'd you think of No Time to Die 7 months later here on your second viewing?
Still really enjoyed it. Enjoyed it probably more so now that I had the added context of Spectre.
And the other 24 movies too for the like references.
I mean, yeah. So it's like some of the like the homage and stuff. Like, but like a lot of them I think I knew just because I'd watched enough like like here's
Tangents
all
and
the
stuff,
Easter eggs
right?
of
Mhm.
of No Time to Die or something like that. Like so like I like the intro when like the dots come up, I was like, yeah, okay, that is like Dr. No. I've now seen Dr.
Mhm.
No, so I can remember that introduction a little bit, albeit very vaguely here 6 months
Mhm.
on. um that one of the biggest things that I appreciated more so this time around was in that opening sequence before all the shit goes to hell. Madeline's like basically alludes to Bond like, I have something I need to tell you.
Mhm.
And Bond basically just like, he's already pissed off, so he brushes it off with "I bet you do," and it's realizing now in hindsight, after you know the rest of the movie, that she's going to tell him she's pregnant,
Mhm.
and obviously that conversation never gets to happen. But yeah, it's definitely something I didn't piece together or think about, you know,
Right.
halfway through the movie the last time when that reveal happens. Um, and then yeah, I also like I had context for the opening sequence of this one this time around. So like the first time I was like, what is this? What movie am I watching right now? This does not seem
Mhm.
like a Bond movie with this horror and like this guy in a kabuki mask, just like, or a no
Yeah.
mask or whatever, just straight up killing a drunk ass woman on a couch,
Yeah.
and then like threatening a child. Um,
Mhm.
so I had like the additional context around that,
Around
and then
that.
yeah, I just kind of got to enjoy, um, like Bond, like Daniel Craig's last hurrah as Bond, and
Yeah.
Jeffrey Wright's last hurrah as Felix. Um, I'll say like one of the things you brought up in kind of the earlier segment, talking about the age of Bond,
Mm.
the age of him didn't bother me at all. Like
It
and
didn't bother me. I just noticed it more than the
I
prior
guess that's what I'm
films.
saying. Is like I didn't even like register or think about that.
Mm.
In the same way that like, we went from one Roger Moore to another Roger Moore movie, and it was like, oh my god, he looks like the Crypt Keeper now, kind of thing. Like
Right.
this
Yeah.
one, like Daniel Craig still looks friggin' phenomenal for a
Still, yeah. Still
50,
younger than like half of Roger Moore's
yeah,
movies. Yeah. Right.
or and in like significantly better shape.
Better shape.
Like he's still out there doing what he needs to do to get into shape for the role, and
Right.
even if he's not doing as much of the physical stuff as he had done in earlier films, like he's still showing up. And this is one that obviously I think, while I mentioned in the Spectre episode, like I never felt in Spectre that like he wasn't showing up to work or to do the work. Like
Mhm.
by contrast, in this one, like there's an extra amount of like, because he knows this is his last one, he's got the like
Right.
Harrison Ford coming back for Force Awakens vibe to it, of like he
Mm.
knows
Yep.
this is it for
Glad you
him,
mentioned that.
so
Yep.
he's gonna go all out, and he's gonna he's gonna put his all into it to give
Yeah.
Bond an appropriate send off. And I think there's a lot of good heart to it. I think there's a lot of good humor to it, and yeah, the action as well.
Yeah. I think that Harrison Ford and Force Awakens is subnapped analogy, right? And I think, we probably mentioned this last time too, because I think it is the reason we have Daniel Craig in a fifth Bond movie is probably because he said, let's kill him off, after his kind of much publicized distaste for playing the character anymore. I think that's one of the reasons, alongside a big paycheck, that they got him back. Right. And I think we'll get to the ending itself and like that moment a little bit later on from now. But I do think that I agree that Daniel Craig is much more in this one than he is in Spectre, right? Like I think he's much more engaged. I think it is his best performance since Skyfall, right? Like I think he has way more clocked and way more engaged. He's ready because I think he knows it's gonna be the last one, and he's ready to just kind of give it his all. I think he's got a great cast of people around him for the most part, and so I think there is just this feeling of, let's go kind of leave everything on the court a little bit. And I think you see that really particularly in Craig's performance, and the fact that it is such a different James Bond arc than we usually see, right? I think also was kind of a fun aspect to it for him, right? I think that No Time to Die There is a lot I like about the movie. I do think the pre-title sequence is one of the ones that works a little bit less for me in like the more modern era, since they really started like hitting on all cylinders since like Timothy Dalton onwards. I just think it's really long. But the problem, it's a little bit
If
like with What Is On Enough, where like ideally you would have had it end after like the sequence with Madeline, but like that wouldn't have really worked as a natural stop and off point. So like a little bit in like What Is On Enough, where like, oh, like it's gonna end when he hops out of the bank office window, but like that's only 2 minutes and it's a really lame opening. It's like, well, let's make it longer then. It's got that sort of vibe to me. But also beyond that, that's one of the elements in the movie that I most dislike, borderline like really, really dislike, is James's handling of everything with Madeline in that moment. Just none of it really feels right to me. Or like real to the character in him, like him just like immediately blaming her and immediately suspecting her and like giving her just like not a chance to say anything, and then putting her on a train and having her leave and just like not talking to her for 5 years. Like none of that was like, that makes sense from where we just saw them leave off or where this movie begins. And that is like to a degree a personal thing, but like, and also they just wanted to get rid of her so they could have her come back together with a kid at the end. I understand that from a film and like storytelling perspective. Just in the moment, both times, that has never really worked for me. I've always been like, that's a really dumb series of things James did there, I think.
I mean, I think a lot of it for me, and I definitely didn't think about this the first time around because none of this was nearly as fresh. But like this time
Right.
around, like the lesson learned from Vesper of don't trust anyone, don't get too close because people will betray you. He goes to like he has been brought here by Madeline and just so happens to get like exploded and then have to like go on this like ridiculous chase to just survive. Like I
Mhm.
fully understand why he would be a little gun shy towards her and absolutely suspect that like this person who had ties to Spectre could have been playing the long game like Vesper did and still kind of dick him over here to the point that yeah he puts her he doesn't do the like I'm like I love you too much to kill you outright, so I'm going to put you on a train and we will never see each other again because because I think you've betrayed me. Like that fully makes sense with the version of Bond that we've had in the Daniel Craig era, I think.
I don't know. I think for me, I guess, and it's really fun too because it's just slightly like different readings of the Daniel Craig arc. For me, it doesn't, because sort of I think arc of his character a little bit was getting moving on from that, right, and letting go of that and welcoming people into his life, right, whether it is obviously M or Q or Moneypenny, right, these new characters kind of into his life that kind of show that he can trust people.
Mhm.
And it's like, and again, it's one of those things like you see in like older movies too, where it's just like this entire plot could have been solved if they just like talked to each other in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
right? And like it's just like that sort of dynamic, but like we just need them to not talk to make this work.
Yeah,
And like
if she
I
just said
understand that
like
to a
her little
degree.
thing
Yeah.
instead of threw it on a note and lit it on fire, like in
Right.
this magical festival of saying goodbye to your secrets or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's like that
I will say
classic, yeah,
to that
things like
point,
just don't tell each other stuff.
the idea of like him getting past that and like opening up to people, I like that as soon as he does that, he literally gets exploded upon. and so that's going to be, the world or the universe giving him a sign, hey, no, don't trust people. You were doing fine when you weren't trusting people. If you trust people, you might get exploded.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree, but I do think, it's a silly movie thing that they just needed these characters to talk to each other. I don't like it. It's one of my less favorite parts of the film, and it's unfortunately one that kind of opens it up and I think hobbles things a little bit. I'd have just loved them to just have these two characters together, right? Like to me, there's no real issue in, I think at least, there's no issue in just having none of this be a surprise, right? Like, I don't think the movie is demonstrably different. And in some ways, I think the ending is more impactful and stronger if all that shit happens, and James and Madeline get on a train together and go forward, and we still cut to 5 years later, and now it's just the two of them and Matilda all together in Jamaica doing their thing, and then it gets recruited on this mission still, right? So that way, when we get to the ending, I think his like sacrifice for the two of them feels even more like impactful and emotional because he's had that time and knows what he would be missing in a way where now it's like he's known Matilda for like a day. He hasn't seen Madeline in more than like 5 years, except for like a few days now. Like, not hanging out with him is like, well, you've just done that for 5 years, right? It's sort of my thing. Versus like being with him, living with them, and like loving those characters, and then missing out on it is all. Ultimately, I think the ending works for me still, but I think it would have just been a stronger emotional hit for me if they just not had that beat.
Yeah, I mean, I
opinion.
don't think if Bond has that 5 years with them, I don't think he ever goes back to MI6. I don't think he ever like gets brought back into that world. He like in the one day he has with Matilda, he's happy to be a stay-at-home dad making eggs for her and stuff. Like
Oh yeah.
I don't think I don't think M or like I think they would just be like, you guys have done fine for 5 years without me. You'll do fine moving forward without me. I think
Right, and I
yeah.
think that's where the movie does some like something involved with like Stefan kidnaps Madeline and Matilda, and that's like the motivation or something like that, right? It's sort of pitching a different movie than what we get, but that's what I would sort of say. But then like hopping past there, like absolutely want to give a ton of applause to Jeffrey Wright, as I'm sure you do as well. Really, really, I think like his entire three movies as Felix Leiter have all been so good, and I think this is the one where we get the most both with him and also like the most kind of emotional arc of that character, and is also the first moment in the film where it's like, oh, they really might do stuff. Like they really might do something at the end here when they kill Felix off, and it's like, all right, now we're kind of in uncharted territory a little bit. Kind of feel to it. And I really liked his and Bond's entire like series of scenes together, but in particular the last scene together I thought was like really beautifully done.
Yeah, like I also very much enjoy like Felix, especially because like when we left off with Felix, since he hasn't been around for the last couple movies, he got promoted up to like up the
Mhm.
chain, and so like the fact that he's back out there on the ground, he is gone out of his way to find Bond and try and recruit him for this thing as as a freelancer. I love the back and forth that they have in that scene.
Yes.
I love that Bond is like immediately like, that guy smile, like your guy smiles too much. I don't vibe with him. He's not, but he
Mhm.
also like almost immediately clocks, or he clocks something about Nomi, who he sees on the drive into
Yeah.
town, and then he sees her at the club, and then obviously she's the one that like picks him up and offers him a ride home. Um, but before that, I was actually curious
Mm.
what you thought. Like, obviously, you think the pre-title stuff runs long, but what do you think of the action in like from the explosion on? What did you think of
Mm.
that sequence? Like action wise, apart from the emotional beats of Bond versus Madeline.
Yeah, I really liked it, right? I think the bridge chase is probably going to be one of the kind of iconic images of Craig's era of like him like dodging the car and like hopping off the bridge with the rope is like a really great shot. And like a nice little bit of like iconography for his character that kind of threads it in a little bit with like Skyfall in the train sequence there, and then all the way back to Casino Royale and like hopping off fucking cranes and shit, and like shows kind of even in One Last Go the physicality I think of his Bond that he has kind of embodied so well, the physical nature of the character. The scene of the car just getting shot the fuck by like everyone, and like the guy just being like point blank range, just like shooting again and again and again, is like a nice funny moment, especially kind of knowing what is Bond going to get out of the situation, like him just like turning it on a dime is like such a great like Bondian moment.
Mhm.
um and so a lot of that stuff I don't have issues with, right? I do enjoy. I think the eye patch, Cyclops is like a kind of a nice homage to like classic Bond henchman, even if he's a bit on the bland side ultimately. But he's menacing looking enough, and I enjoy the fact that he just is sort of working for anyone who will hire him.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I enjoy that. But yeah, I mean, I think the pre-title sequence, it's sort of what comes in. It's something that's like
in the same way that like
minutes
Jaws,
long. It's like good and bad in it, right?
I was just gonna say,
Yeah,
in the
Jaws
same
too.
way that Jaws was like henchman for hire, goes from being
Yeah.
with Stromberg in one to whoever in another, whatever,
Hugo
whichever
Drax.
ones he was in.
Oh, well, if we can get him, yes. It's such a great line about Jaws.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like it's a fucking like agency he's calling.
And that's I guess that's even another like a small thing I didn't pick up this or until this time around. Like I just didn't register it the first time, is that we see through Q watching like back the eyeball footage, we see Logan hire Cyclops to work for Safin as opposed to Spectre, which explains why he's around for the second half of the movie. So like I appreciated that a little bit more on a second run. But yeah, I'll echo a lot of what you're saying. Like I love the action of this, both like we get the first of many explosions that Bond inexplicably survives, to the point that like I was kind of keeping account as we were going through the movie. I'm like, all right, based on how many times they've set up that Bond is immune to explosions, I think it's entirely possible he survives the end of the film.
Hell yeah.
They're doing the legwork to set that up if they wanted to make him come back for one more movie somehow. Just be like, yeah, no, miracle of miracles.
He just climbed back down off the roof. It's fine.
Yeah, he survived yet another explosion. You saw him survive 4 others throughout the film.
Right.
But I love the specifically the sound design that they do utilize a couple times, where like it clearly messes up his hearing, and so like he doesn't hear the car coming the first time until and he doesn't know it's behind him until he gets shot in the shoulder or something like that, and then he turns, realizes, ducks down, and then jumps off, and then he like goes motorcycling through town to get to Madeline, and then we get one last hurrah with the Aston Martin in a very fun little sequence there. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that all. And then
in terms,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, in terms of the sound design, I mean, just to go right to my favorite like moment of sound in the movie is at the end at like Stefan's base, where the grenade drops, right, and he just goes like Call of Duty deaf, right, and because like really.
The best part of that is one grenade drops, he throws it back up, and then 3 more grenades drop, and that's right. That's what does it to him.
I would be surprised if we're not in agreement about like that entire stairwell like sequence is just one of the best parts of the entire movie. It's just absolutely incredible. Like I felt like I was in like the raid for like 5 minutes here. It was so cool, and like that. Despite my issues with how the movie ends, I think so much at like that layer and Bond just being James Bond in it is so cool, right? Because like one of the weird things about Daniel Craig's Bond is that we haven't seen him do a lot of these big action set piece kind of fights, right? Like really outside of Skyfall, in fact, I would say it's like the only time he like fights like a shit ton of guys and survives. And even by like the nature of Skyfall, it's mostly him like home alone in the house, unless like I'm just gonna fucking kill all of you with my bare hands or gun kind of thing, like you would see in some of the older school Bond movies or some of the Pierce Brosnan ones. And so like it was really cool to see Craig get like this classic Bond moment, just like I'm just gonna take all of you out, and it's cool, and like it's dope to have like the new 007 here as well, kind of like alongside, kind of like balance off each other's backs, each getting their own moment. Her killing a racist, it's great. Like that whole sequence is like probably some of like my 10-20 minutes of like my favorite shit and like anything Daniel Craig has done in his era. It's all so well done and kept at such a good pace and such a good clip. Like I think it's just executed so well. And that setup sequence is like, to me, like the showpiece of that whole thing.
Yeah, obviously we we've been watching these last 6 months, we haven't been like commenting or doing the extra kind of like analysis of like, like seeing, we've brought it up a few times here and there, I guess, but like how action has changed over the course of 60 years. And these ones in particular, like this era where I've, been growing up with the action and stuff, like I love that this era, that the Craig era starts with action heavily inspired by Bourne and ends, as you kind of touched on, with like action heavily inspired by The Raid or
John
John
Wick.
Wick, or when I think of the stairwell thing, I think of Daredevil fights from the Netflix Daredevil series.
Ooh,
Like
it's a great shout
every
out
one
as
of those
well.
seasons had like
Yeah,
a great standout, like one shot, just beating the hell out of everybody
yeah,
in a hallway or a stairwell or something like that. And this very much was reminiscent of that kind of vibe of like
it's great.
we've got this, we've got this environment, let's choreograph a thing to this environment and make it something that could only happen in this, in this area. I think like even
Hmm.
like another similar one in that vein is like Winter Soldier has a similar fight with when Bucky and Cap are in there in the stairwell among the
Hmm.
other people. So yeah, it's been a fun kind of thing to, I guess, for me, starting with maybe the Dalton era that was like, this is super 80s action, into like
Yeah, absolutely.
90s like modern-ish action of
Hmm.
the GoldenEye and the Brosnan era stuff,
Browsing an era.
and then into like what we've seen action be in the last 10 years,
Hmm.
has been like really cool. So I think that, yeah,
I,
that's definitely a fun shout out to kind of that climactic little battle there.
I mean, I think to your point in general, I think that's been one of the, for me, one of the things that's been really cool about watching all the movies together is even expanding it beyond that, just the arc of how action scenes, how movies have changed and evolved and grown in the last 60 years, right? Like both action scene wise and also just everything wise, right? Like I think it's been one of the neat things to see, just in a very literal way, the evolution of filmmaking for 60 years, right? And like Bond is sort of unique among film series because like it's got movies in every decade from the 1960s onwards. It's got a lot of movies in every decade, so you can kind of trace like these very clear like lines of what it's doing, of either what it inspires or what's inspiring it, and how it's kind of like evolved and changed because of that. They do filmmaking techniques. I mean, License to Kill, to your point, straight up has a roadhouse fight scene in a bar. Like it is straight up roadhouse, and like it's awesome. It's a great scene, and like I think to see the things that inspire Bond, and the fact that they usually work off Star Wars Moonraker did not, but usually they work off, and they inspire these like cool Bondian versions of them. I think has been one of the more neat things. And so to get to this point, again, we talked about it a lot last week with like from the Red Grant fight to the fight we have in the train car inspector. It's like super cool to see these two things that are like homages to classic Bond films and done in a modern sensibility. And like I think No Time to Die does a lot of that, because that whole final sequence is just like really any of Lewis Gilbert's giant battle scenes that he has, whether it's in You Only Live Twice or Spy Who Loved Me or Moonraker. They're all sort of being these giant climactic battle fights, and No Time to Die kind of does its own version on that, and that's super cool to see what it would look like if we had one of those set in 2021. And so I think that's something that I always love, is to kind of see where it started and then where we kind of have these things done at nowadays.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to kind of in between the great Felix stuff. Obviously, we get the like detour over to Cuba and the all too brief sequence with my heart Ana de Armas, who I've had like a cinematic crush on since Blade Runner 2049. Obviously, she's also great
Great
in
movie.
Knives Out and
Great movie.
phenomenal
Yes.
here. So much so that they were like, we're going to plaster her all over the marketing stuff.
Yeah.
And then like the word of mouth, the immediate word of mouth that coming out of the movie was like, Ana Armas is great. She's in
Yeah.
it far too little. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's going to translate to. And it's like, oh yeah, no, that's exactly how I would describe this. She is
Yeah.
magnetic and perfect in every little moment that she has, and she's gone like that. And it's like, oh, damn it.
Such electric chemistry with Daniel Craig as well, right? And like I think you really see the perks of them having done probably Knives Out before this.
Yeah,
the film's a little wonky.
Yeah, one of
And,
the
like,
one
I
of the
think-
trivia things is like she was brought into this directly because Daniel Craig recommended her after having worked with her on Knives Out,
Yeah.
which came out like 4 months before this was originally supposed to come out.
Filming.
So like they had
Yeah.
clearly shot Knives Out, and then like he was doing this, and then they like whether the Cuba sequence was like pickups or whatever, but it was like clearly like they brought her in to do that little one-off thing, and then
cool
he's
thing.
going to go back off on the rest of his adventure. But yeah, she's just like such a joy and delight.
I also love it, as I'm sure you do too, the fact that they're like, it is just a really fun platonic dynamic they have together, right? And there is no like really no hint at all of like any sort of romance or flirtation or thing. It's just like a really fun, friendly banter and back and forth to have, and like her being on her like, you know, second mission or whatever, and just wrecking fools left and right. It's such a great thing. Obviously, she's like the latest in a long line of awesome characters to like get the buzz of like, we should give her her own spin-off movie, just like Waylon and Jinx did as well. And yeah, I think, you know, with Amazon buying MGM now and like talking about possibly doing more, you know, Bond series things, maybe like Bond TV series kind of stuff. That to me is an obvious one if they didn't want to give her her own standalone thing, if they want to just make that James Bond only. Because I think pretty much everyone in the entire world would be happy to see more of her. She is like such a great flash in the pan for those like 10 minutes she's in it.
Yeah, and I like shout out to I've forgotten the character's name, but the one from Live and Let Die, who like obviously I had seen this movie, and so like in Live and Let Die, when she was like, I've only been doing this for like 3 weeks or whatever.
Oh,
And
Daisy?
she was
Something like
just
that.
terrible and inept and incompetent.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yes.
and this is easily the better version of that kind of character.
Rosie. That's what it
And
is.
yeah, it's like such a delight, such a joy, and such a like badass ass kickery. Like I love
Yeah.
the introduction of like she's forgotten the code phrase thing, and like and there's almost a beat of like Bond, like obviously we had in the Brosnan era when like the contact didn't say the right code phrase or whatever, Bond like holds him up and is like and show me
Jack
the
Wade,
rose,
yeah.
show me the rose of Jack Wade kind of thing. He's like, really, do I like, all right, fine. And this one Bond's just like, you know what, like I get it, she knows enough, she knew to look for me, like we're fine,
Yeah.
whatever, we're fine. Where are we going? I'm just kind of along for the ride. And then like and she starts like taking his shirt off to change him or whatever. He's like, I can do this myself. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like but yeah, they go and share a drink. The like putting in the earpiece, she doesn't touch her hand her earpiece. Bond doesn't have to do that reprise of like don't touch your ear. And they just have like such great back and forth over the comms as they're kind of scoping out the thing. That yeah, it's such a like it hurts when she's gone. It's like the what is it? I took the knot. Like this is my stop. You were excellent. My note there is yes, you were, Anna. Yes, you were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Such a like just such a great
joy.
sequence for them. And amidst all that, yeah, like amidst all of the great stuff that they're doing, we get this like big epic closure of the Spectre subplot of like, oh, just and also all of Spectre dies. Because of
that
because
I love
nanobots.
less, but
it's
nanobots.
It's
like
like
it doesn't even matter because Ana de Armas is so great and so engaging throughout the entire series.
Yeah, all of that it like is I love the Spectre stuff of like all these nameless, faceless Spectre people. It's like whatever. Like it's taking that piece of the taking them off the board in a very stupid way that also like sets up Safin knows his shit. He knows what to do. He knows how to do this stuff. And so if he like, it's almost a never like Spectre and this in particular, I guess, set up like this era of like one-upsmanship. Like Blofeld had to show that he was kind of the orchestration of all of Bond's pain, and this one is saying like, yeah, he was doing that. I'm playing a game of chess, like even above that. I'm playing 4D chess. Yeah.
I mean, it very much to me, right? Like, just reads as like they understood that people, I think, had issues with Spectre, A, and B, they were like, this is gonna be Daniel Craig's last one. Let's wrap up that loose end. So let's just like literally kill all of them. Spectres doesn't exist anymore. Don't worry about it. And then we're gonna kill Blofeld, and that's done. And so if you didn't like it, they're all fucking dead. Great. And If you wanted that, that loose end wrapped up, great. It's been taken care of. We got pretty much everyone happy in one fell swoop there for you.
It's a better way of dealing with Blofeld than dropping him from a helicopter into a giant smokestack.
Then just not dealing with him because you can't, because of a 40-year legal fight. I agree, right, in that vein. What I will say about the Blofeld Bond scene is, and this, even with watching the movies, is something that you probably don't know that you'll probably enjoy, which is so much of that scene that they're playing out is the way it plays out in the novel of You Only Live Twice, where Bond, which again, in that order, is the last Bond Blofeld one, even though in the movies it's like the first one. And that one basically has like, Bond screaming like, I'm going to kill you, like him strangling Blofeld like we kind of get here, except for there, he just fucking kills him basically. Like I think he like lets him go and like shoots him because someone else should do something kind of thing, but like he kills Blofeld, right? And here he does it in a similar vein, but then like backs off, but then because of the nanobot shit, he actually kills him. But like a lot of that dialogue is taken like straight up from the novel You Only Live Twice, which is like actually again a really cool like homage and reference to Blofeld's literary death, even if we never have any canon death for Blofeld in the entire series, right? And so it's kind of a cool way to be like, if we are going to kill him in the films, let's give him the way he goes out in, the novels in the best, closest way we can possible kind of thing. And so like that, I think is an aspect of that scene I really like, even if a lot of the rest of it is kind of like, that's dumb, but like, whatever. It's cool that we got this like 50-year reference to how he goes out in the books.
Mm-hmm. Up to this point, I want to give a shout out to Valdo. Oberchev, I think, is the scientist who I didn't write the note until much later, until basically Nomi kicks him in the face in the lab. Not when she kicks him off to his death, but like when she kicks him in the lab. I'm like, this guy is giving the most Boris vibes since Alan Cumming in Goldeneye. He is that brand of nerdy henchman kind of thing, and I'm for it. I love the introduction of him, of like his. He's the picked on guy at the lab. The other scientists are like joking about giving him smallpox kind of thing. And then he immediately gets to turn the tables in a real serious way. And we get like that fun little breach of Spectre taking out the stuff, but Safin kind of like, again, giving Oberchev the heads up. And then there's another thing I appreciated on this rewatch is realizing that the thing that that Cyclops is giving him to like for Bond's DNA is the toothbrush that he used in the Jamaica home. That then Oberchev basically like drops it and then switches it in for the multiple profiles to take out all the Spectre people. But yeah, it was like I appreciated being able to kind of take a closer eye, because you also see obviously Cyclops at the nightclub in Cuba, so like that he's there and he's on Bond's tail and stuff like that. So yeah, it was just a lot of or Jamaica rather. Yeah, like I just appreciate a lot of like the little crumbs that they kind of set up there that I appreciated just much more on a second viewing. But yeah, I just like that dumb little guy who then basically gives away the game and causes Logan to kind of reveal his badassness, or not badassness, his just badness to and shoots Felix. And then we get like the last little moment with Felix, sadness. But even there, I loved Bond and Felix kind of like cracking jokes while staring death in the face kind of thing. Like it's like when I was on that shrimp boat. You're from Milwaukee. Am I? I thought I made that up. I love the little back and forth that they have in that sequence.
Yeah. I think they have such great chemistry together, Jeff Wright and Daniel Craig, and I think you see the benefit of having these characters played by the same people, right? Like it can be fun to have them kind of like cycle through Felix Leiter's, because you can get ones who are really fun and then you can get ones who are not fun. But just like if you get a good one, just have them go again and again and again, which to be fair, was the original plan until Jack Lord was like, hey, I should get equal billing in a James Bond movie as James Bond. You guys have a problem with that? And then they were like, yeah, we do, Jack. So that's why we didn't get him anymore after Doctor No.
Sure, but then
But like,
there's absolutely no reason they couldn't have just cast somebody in that second movie and then kept the guy. Like,
sure.
it's like, yeah, the Broccoli's are friggin' morons and terrible terrible producers. That is still the ongoing thing of this. But yeah, finally they got out of their own way and decided to start sticking with like a set cast of characters. And yeah, you get emotional investment across those characters, even when you haven't seen them in a few movies.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the payoff to Logan being an asshole and that chase sequence, which is really well done and really nervy and really tense, and yeah, Bond just like dropping the car on him felt so earned and felt so like such a good like, yeah, like fuck yeah, like you suck kind of thing. And I thought it was great. I think that whole dynamic is good, and I think, you know, so much of what No Time to Die is trying to do, in terms of wrapping up the loose ends, I think that is one of my favorite moments, is kind of Bond's ability to get some sort of justice for Felix and his death from Logan. One of the last things I kind of wanted to go over is like, I think Q, M, and Moneypenny are all really good in this.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, for the third movie in a row, I'm gonna rave about how great I love Ben Whishaw as Q. I think, you know, the evolving relationship between him and Bond and that connection and that the kind of playfulness they have with each other, and I think the care they show for one another is so well done. It reminds me of like the best of like Desmond Llewellyn in terms of that kind of playfulness and that banter. I think it's a shame that it's both sounds like, and even if he had said anything, I would have said the same thing, that we're not going to get any more of Ben Wishaw's Q. I think he's done with the character, because I think he's so good as Q, and I think he has such a fun sort of levity to that role, and like playfulness, and he's constantly some of the funniest moments of the movie.
Yeah, I love him coming into M's office being like, Bond, how are you? Oh, can it, Q? I know he's staying with you.
Yeah. It's so good. Like I just think he plays that character so well, and he plays that one so good. And like I would love to see him grow into that role, just like Desmond Llewellyn did, because I think he's such a supremely talented actor, even outside of that. But yeah, he just is a blast with it. Naomi Harris's Moneypenny is always good. She's just also a great actress. One of the things I want to talk about that we talked about when the movie came out is Bond and M's relationship. And yeah, just kind of this like state of like decay, right? Like the desk, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is the desk bigger or are you smaller kind of thing?
Yeah.
And I think that this is the third movie in a row of the Daniel Craig era that is really fascinated by the idea of like the end of things and the decline of things and kind of age and advancement and where that falls. And it's probably my second favorite of the three about the end of things and kind of age and decline. But I really like what it does with that character, because we've seen him be great. We've seen him do big things in Skyfall, right? And like save the day, save him, pulling out a gun, and someone who fits that desk, I think, really well. And so now to kind of see him just increasingly sunken in, I think, in this role and not enjoying it maybe the way he thought, or not fitting into it the way he thought, I thought was really clever and really smart. And how do you kind of step into the shoes of a legend? We get a great Bernard Lee portrait in the background in this movie as well. A great one for Judi Dench. And yeah, I mean, I think so much of like the Craig era is about the end of things, and also a really smart allegory on the state of the British Empire, the state of England in general. And so him kind of having to step into the shoes of someone who was like this lion in Judi Dench, and having problems doing that, right, I thought was really smart and really clever. And starting a program that maybe he didn't have an end game for also felt real, because you're trying to kind of keep pace with the world around you, and how that gets away from you, I thought was really well done.
Yeah, it's also like, it's obviously they couldn't call the thing, you know, Project Icarus, because they'd already done that with the Sky Beam from a few movies ago. But like that's very much what this one feels like. They, you know, obviously Project Heracles. It's you know, they flew far too close to the sun on that without
Yeah.
thinking about how that weapon could easily be manipulated and misused in
And
the wrong
lost. Yeah.
hands.
Right.
Like it's that like it's such a trope of like technological bioweapon kind of stories, that have like, oh, you're never going to be able to design the perfect bullet because then somebody bad is going to steal that perfect bullet and use it to kill the people that you don't want them to kill.
Right.
So it's just this like absurd level of hubris that,
Yeah.
I love that scene in The Office where Bond calls him out.
Hmm.
I love the scene of Bond and Mallory out, on the shoreline or whatever outside the
Yes.
office, where like Mallory kind of like owns up to the mistake, and like they try and come up with a plan of how to fix it. Um, and so yeah, like I enjoy their dynamic throughout as well, and I like it's another one like Inspector. I appreciated like Bond was doing his kind of mission in the old MI6 stuff, and then the MI6 crew was all together taking out C and dealing with that stuff. I appreciate that
Hmm.
this one is kind of ending with them, I guess, like Moneypenny's there, but like Moneypenny, Tanner, and M all kind of at home base. Q on the plane, and then double oh
With
007 and
Bond.
double oh 007 on the ground, like
Yeah.
all together, kind of on this final mission. You really get the like. That's another thing I think um I in particular appreciated much more this time around is when I watched No Time to Die the first time around, Tanner was just like some other guy, and
Yeah.
having watched all five of these movies kind of back to back to back,
Yeah.
I have an appreciation that he was a constant presence, starting with Quantum of
Hmm.
Solace, as kind of M's number two person, versus like in Casino Royale that like she has a completely different number two who just didn't come back for
Right.
any others. But so like even like I had a better appreciation for like why he's in there drinking around to their departed comrade at the end,
Hmm.
kind of thing. And so yeah, like I love that like this one ends with kind of everybody working together in whatever capacity they can.
They can.
M, making the call to send the missiles, even though he's going to have to deal with like the political recourse and ramifications and stuff. Q kind of being the go-between guy in the chair in the air. Um, and then obviously the Bond and Nomi on the ground kind of sequence there at the end. Yeah, lots of great stuff there.
The last big thing I want to run over with you before we kind of start running into the wrap up is obviously how the movie ends with James obviously dying in the blast. Trevor, 25 Bond movies in now, over 59 years. How do you like I mean, we'll start both with the decision to kill James Bond off and then also its execution, because I think they're two very different things. So we'll go with that route.
Um, I I like both ultimately. I
Mhm.
think this is a character that is a timeless character, and
Mhm.
from the 60s on, and I think to continue like creating stories with this character, like they don't need to be intertwined like this. They don't need to like
Mhm.
this is a character like a Sherlock Holmes or like a Robin Hood or like whatever. Like you can tell a complete story with a character and have an ending for that character be that, a death, and then you reboot it
Yeah.
in 3 years time or
Right.
whatever, and you tell a new beginning, you tell a new story. It's we live in an era where in the last 10 years we've had three different Spider-Man kind of things. It's like it's having a new Bond, or having a Bond story end, knowing that a new Bond is going to continue or begin again. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Or I guess another, great example would be like Batman. We've had so many different
Yeah.
Batman variations since 1989, that like this is just doing that. This is a
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
different take on The Dark Knight Rises. Like a more concrete to this ending kind of take on The Dark Knight Rises. So I like that as a as a encapsulation of the Daniel Craig era. You can make the argument, and I think it's still a silly argument, that defies time constraints and whatnot, that Connery up through Brosnan was all the same Bond. Um,
Right.
but I appreciate that this one isn't going to get in the weeds with that. Like, the next
Yeah.
person that takes over Bond is very clearly not this Bond. This was
Yes.
a 5-movie story telling the tales of this Bond, in the same way that I guess, like, we have, the Doctor comes in and,
Yeah.
does
It's a great example.
Brit, like, I've been conditioned from Brits to appreciate this, be it through the Dark Knight trilogy or through the Doctor Who series. So I think all that's fine. I think the decision to make a definitive end for this Bond is a cool choice, and a choice that is, I think, just inherently interesting because it hasn't been done before. In 60 years with this character, here's something they're doing with them that they've never done before. So yeah, I appreciate that. And then I don't know if you want me to weigh in on the execution as well now, or if you want to give your thoughts on the decision to kill him or not.
I think that, I don't disagree. It's like a weird thing where, like, I don't disagree with you, but I disagree with you. Right? Like, I think Doctor Who's a good example. I think, I mean, even to some degrees, right? Like, I think I've come to the point in my life now, I think, where I like lore and chronology and canon and how stuff fits into it. I enjoy those things a decent amount. As a kid, I think I liked them a lot more because, as someone who played video games, you kind of had to make it up. And so any bit you could get, you had to, like, really latch on to. And I really enjoyed that side of things. And especially in a series like James Bond that left a lot of, like, breadcrumbs, but very little tangible things. I enjoyed those kind of aspects. Same with, like, Star Wars. I think I'm at the point in my life now, and I'm Ben Bellevue, former That Nerdy Side, guy, just had this tweet today about Star Wars. I just think it's easier to just enjoy shit and not worry about it most of the time, right? Like, and again, I feel like a lot of my sensibility about what I do and don't like is obviously inframed by the fact that my two favorite kind of stories, right, or like franchises, are Star Wars and James Bond, where, like, yeah, like, just don't stress out about it, honestly. Like, just enjoy it for what you're getting, right? Like, just enjoy this trilogy of movies for the trilogy of movies it is. And how does it fit into the other ones? I don't know, like, worry about it as much as it affects the movie that you're currently watching, kind of thing, right? Like, how does this TV show affect the larger universe? I don't know, man. Like, just worry about how it affects what you're watching now. Same with the games. Like, don't get too bogged down in Star Wars' like canon and universe, because as we talked about last year when we did the Summer of Star Wars, it usually doesn't make things better and can oftentimes try to make it fit will make it worse. And I think that's largely where I'm at with James Bond, right? Like, I love the James Bond canon. I think there's a lot to enjoy about that. But I think trying to make it all fit together and work just doesn't work by the nature of it. I've long been of the opinion, James Bond is one dude. It's not a code name. I hate that. They'd be like, he's one dude. Yeah, and we just get reboots. He just gets rebooted all the time. And I think me and you were maybe sort of lucky in the fact that, like, we grew up in an era of multiple Batman and multiple Superman and multiple Spider-Man, and, like, this is just an idea that isn't foreign to us. Like, it might have been if we had been, grown up in the 60s or 70s or 80s kind of thing, where that wasn't a thing really. But I think, like, if you want to be really generous, Connery to Brosnan is all one rough timeline that's roughly the same character. I largely hew to the idea of, like, James Bond is Doctor Who. Like, that's such a great analogy. We're like, Sean Connery is the first Doctor, and, George Lazenby's the second one, and, like, that's just how it works. And, like, yeah, they're all the same person, but, like, each new person is, like, pretty much a whole new person kind of thing, and a whole new canon, and don't worry about it, right? Like, James Bond is a person who I think has just sort of entered the status of, like, myth and legend in a vein similar, actually, to another great point you made of, like, Robin Hood. I think is a really apt comparison. Or, like, so, like, to me, I look at it and view it almost in the same vein of, like, how many different adaptations and interpretations of Shakespeare's plays are there, right? Like, And I think James Bond is a similar thing, right? And I think when people try to make it all work, it just doesn't. In terms of the actual decision to kill him off, it's tough, right? Like, I think I'm sort of split on it, right? And like maybe partially it's just because like movies keep killing off all these childhood heroes of mine. And so like it's been a rough few years. Like, give me a break, guys, right? But like, you know, we killed Han and then we killed Luke and Leia. And I just think, and now obviously James, and they're probably going to kill Indiana Jones off in his movie too, just to wrap up the trifecta. And so like we're at this point where, you know, like in some vein, I think it's really human and really natural to be like, well, I don't want these things to end, right? Like I don't want these heroes' stories to stop and to die, right? And I think that's a valid reason for why people were upset about the decision in this or in Star Wars when those characters passed away, right? Like you form, I think, really personal relationships with these characters because you probably grew up watching them and reading the books about them and that kind of thing. And so like, I think it is human to not want that to end. On the other hand, as someone who does routinely say on lots of podcasts, let things end, they let this end, right? Like we got an ending of a James Bond story in a vein where really, in the most generous reading, maybe Connery did. Lazenby did because his Bond definitely got PTSD and quit afterwards. But otherwise, like, no one really got to just end Bond on their terms, and Craig does. And so, like, I like that idea. Would I have rather Daniel Craig's ending been Skyfall or the ending he gets in Spectre, despite what I hate about that movie? Probably. This is probably my least favorite of his three endings. But I think, like the idea that we give him an ending, even if I don't like that we have to kill him off, right? I understand the reasons behind it, both storytelling wise and also because, again, there's no way in hell Daniel Craig would have come back if they didn't kill him off. I firmly believe that. I don't care what anyone tells me. That's definitely within his contract, just like it was for Harrison Ford. And so like, yeah, like that's sort of where I'm at, where like I'm in this sort of state where like I feel like I should be more upset about it than I am, right? Like I feel like as someone who has loved Bond since I was 5, I should be upset that he is getting killed off. But I think it's done mostly well, and I really dare anyone not to tear up at that ending, and then the way they like thread in Louis Armstrong's All the Time in the World as like Madeline and Matilda in the car. Like it's a beautiful ending. Like that's the problem. Like I think it's done largely well, even if I don't like the decision. So it's like this weird thing of like, damn it, I don't like what you did, but you did it really well, guys, and I have to applaud you for that. And like I think it's a beautiful ending.
It's also, I guess, like the one thing I don't necessarily like about it is because it's happening in 2021, now 2022, obviously, and because they do the James Bond will return, like it undercuts the impact of it. If this had really been like this is really the end of this character. Like we've told the stories we want to tell with this character in the way that it is with Luke, or something like that, or Han. Like, that, yeah, Luke can come back as a Force ghost or something like that. But like by and large, his story is
dead,
done.
right? Yeah.
And here, Bond is done. Except we know that Bond's not done. We know that Bond is going to come back. We know that Bond, by its nature, is going to get rebooted and there's going to be a new Bond. Like, it's like, I remember a friend of mine in college pitched this idea, like, how great would it be if, like, we went a generation where nobody was allowed to do Shakespeare? Like, nobody did any Shakespeare plays, and then you bring it back for the new generation and start kind of like dissecting and doing this stuff again. If like Bond died here and they didn't do James Bond will return,
a movie for 20
and
years,
it was like, okay, yeah, we're retiring the Bond character, and maybe we'll bring him back in 20 years time when we think we have something new to say or something like that. Then it'd be like, okay, there is more finality to it. This is, a more definitive death of the character. But that's not how movie studios work. We know Bond is going to be back in the next 5 years, guaranteed.
It's interesting that you say that. I actually like the James Bond return aspect to it. I think for two reasons, both because of the way it ties back into, it's like the one last homage to the classic Bond movies that it's been kind of going to so much, and also because I think it actually really works as, James Bond dies in this movie. But I think the beauty of the James Bond return, for me at least, while I was like, had tears coming down my face in the theater, and was like struggling to breathe, is that I think it sort of alludes to the like timeless nature of the character in a way that like I found really beautiful. Like even if like your James Bond, right, dies, like another one will be back, right? Like it's almost like a phoenix from the ashes kind of thing, and like it alludes to like how timeless this character is and how like kind of lasting he is.
Yeah.
And so like I actually found it as like one last extra kind of note of like poignancy to his death, right? Like I don't think it diminishes his death. If anything, I think it kind of adds this like sheen of like timelessness to the quality of that character, right? In the same vein of like, yeah, if in a Robin Hood adaptation, Robin Hood dies, knowing that there's going to be another Robin Hood doesn't change the fact that this Robin Hood won't be back, right? In the same vein, for like Dark Knight Rises, I think is another great example of like, if Batman had died in the movie, but even obviously he doesn't, when that movie ends, it very clearly is like, that is the end of Bruce Wayne's story. So even if we're going to get Ben Affleck like 3 years later, right?
Christian Bale,
it doesn't diminish.
Oh yeah.
Well, Ben Affleck came back. It doesn't diminish Christian Bale's Batman, right? Like whether he dies or not, like that story is very clearly done.
Yeah.
And so even if it gets rebooted in a few years, it's just sort of like the timelessness of that character and like that character's arc is done. So I actually liked it. I think it actually adds something to his death a little bit. And it's kind of like a nice little like timeless poignancy to it.
And there is something
that's an understandable complaint.
Yeah, there is a I like the timeless nature of the character in that like kind of one of the precepts of Bond is he served in some kind of war before he started doing the secret agent stuff.
Right.
We got that with Daniel
Naval
Craig
Commander and everything, yeah.
Presumably in a Desert Storm kind of thing. Versus like a character that I'm constantly kind of thinking about in terms of like, how are they going to make this character work for a modern age? Because we've gotten so far away from his origin point, is Magneto from X-Men.
Ooh,
like
yeah,
when they jump into
Trevor.
the X-Men, when X-Men finally make their way into that universe, it's like, all right, but like
you have to be 100 years old.
Exactly. If
right.
if we're realistically going off of his origin
That's
of
a really good point,
being
actually,
in
Trevor.
World War II and concentration camp
Holocaust.
stuff, like how do you modernize that aspect of his story in a way that keeps at its core while also still, espousing his viewpoints and all the stuff that character is so often about. An example thought that I've had around it from recent years in news stories is he's a kid in a cage at the border of Mexico and the US or something like that, and gets kept from his family or something like that. Certainly not like concentration levels, but that still would like fuel a rage because he is deemed as an other kind of thing. But like
different.
There
really
are characters that I think are so intrinsically tied
wedded
to the time period. Like even Captain America is like, they had to literally put him on ice to bring him to a modern age to somehow make that character work, which and that works great, but they can't pull that magic trick with everybody. So whereas like a Bond, somebody like Bond, there's always going to be another war that like they can just kind of like say he was a part of that, and even that, like, he doesn't need to be intrinsically tied to a war that exists in the real world. He can be like tied to a war, a fictional war in the Bond universe or something.
That's a really excellent point. And even in like terms of like Bond being in a war, like even that they've like smushed it to be like Bond he was in the military, he was in the Navy. That's really all you need to know. Like beyond that, like what conflict he was in doesn't matter. He was in the Navy. He's a military man who got recruited in, and like that makes it really easy to do, right? Versus, Magneto's such a great example who's so wedded to that time period, right? Like I don't even know what an interpretation of that character would look like without that, because it is so
And
integral. Or like same with
I,
like Captain America, like you said, like the easy out they got to be like, we're just gonna freeze you for 80
I
years.
do want to say, like, because I'm pretty sure I saw something about this recently. Like the Magneto thing is a thing
I feel like
I've
I
thought
did
about
too,
for many
yeah.
many years, but I do feel like I saw a story recently
Something on Twitter
that was touching on like that wasn't his original origin story. That was an origin story that like that was a story that got like bestowed upon him later and has become more, you know, synonymous
like the
with him
canon story
in the
now,
time
right?
since
Yeah.
and stuff. But like you can do different variations of that character, or you can do that character without having him tied to the Holocaust and still
Right.
have, you know, but him being tied to the Holocaust works so nicely with his, you know, his
Everything.
the rest of his arc, that clearly that's why they've leaned into it for as many years as they have. But yeah, it's just like those are the
That's a
kinds of
really
things I
interesting
think
point.
about of you know, as characters get rebooted and stuff, how well can they actually be rebooted in the time that we're trying to reboot
In the
them,
modern way.
or is the like are they timeless, or are they locked to a time, or how do you
Yeah.
manage those things? I mean, like even Sherlock is another example. Like Sherlock, obviously, you know, detective from the 1900s or whatever, early 1900s. Like you can still kind of create a cool detective story and call him Sherlock and
Mhm.
just kind of go from there with all the
Yeah.
modern trappings, in the same way that they can do that with Bond. Of like,
Yeah.
he is just the archetypal spy at this point. So you just tell a
Yeah.
spy story and throw the Bond name and lineage to it, and you're going to be okay.
Have fun with it. Yeah,
So
that's a great point, Trevor. That's a really great comparison.
as for
Trevor, do you?
I was gonna say, as for execution,
Mhm.
like jokes aside, of like they set up too many times throughout the movie that he survives explosions. But like I appreciate the execution of Safin, like basically like infecting him so that he doesn't have a future. And
Right.
it's cemented when, you know, Q says like you can't get rid of it, you can't get it off you, kind of thing. It's with you eternally. It's microplastics. It's like we're stuck with that in
Nanobots. Right. Yeah.
our system forever, kind of thing. So like there with that in mind, he can't have that idyllic future that,
Hmm.
you know, we might want him to have. And while sure you could do a happily ever after for Bond, I don't think that is inherent to Bond's
Zoom
character.
calls.
And not even that. Like I'm saying, like if Safin didn't
Yeah.
infect him, like Bond
Right.
puts Safin away and then they go sail off and have a happily ever after kind of thing. I just don't think that is in fitting with Bond. I think there's enough
With
darkness
this Bond.
and death to bondage. I mean, like this Bond, I would say, at least going back to like the Dalton Bond, there is a darkness to him that is going to probably preclude a happy ending. But I mean, like even going all the way back to Lazenby, like Bond can't have a happy ending with Tracy because
Mhm.
people will always kind of be over his shoulder, kind of thing. So I like that he gets to go out kind of on his own terms, of he's saving the day and the future for his
His daughter.
his you know, lover, his loved one, who he, you know, he has that nice moment in the middle of the movie kind of where he talks about like, I didn't regret any moment that led me to you, or anything that's come after. The only thing I regret was like putting you on that train. There's a, you know, a lovely sentiment between the two that obviously we don't get much of that time with Bond because it's just a
Yeah.
5-year jump or whatever. But yeah, he's like, he gets one last hero mission to go out on. And I think they do a good job of kind of like establishing all the beats that you need to know for why he makes the decisions he makes in the finale there. And yeah, in the same way that like we talked about, like you and I specifically have talked about, like when they did Uncharted 4, were they gonna, you know, take some of the darkness from Last of Us and infuse that into Uncharted? It's like, no, because that's not the kind of story Uncharted is. But like giving Bond a happily ever after doesn't strike me as the kind of story that Bond is. So I think him having a tragedy of Macbeth kind of ending, or a tragedy of a Shakespearean tragedy kind of story, is more in line and more in fitting with the character than, or I guess like even like a Henry V or something like that. He is
Right.
a hero, but at the end of the day, he you know,
Henry V
he
is a great
gives up
analogy
his life for the cause.
for the country.
Is I think is in fitting with the character more so than like a happily ever after. So the execution for me works very well.
It's interesting. I think that I don't disagree. I definitely think there's a vein. I definitely think you can tell a happily ever after Bond story. Like I think a good analogy to me is something like The Dark Knight Rises, right? Where someone who is so consumed by like grief and loss and tragedy can find a way to break out of that. And I think that's the whole arc of The Dark Knight is like, Bruce thinks that Batman is the real version of him, and it's sort of slowly realizing that like Bruce is still within him, and like that Bruce kind of becomes not the mask but the real person again by the end of that arc that I really like. And I think there's something that you can do with the Batman story. I think with what they tried to do with Daniel, I mean, to be fair, we did get a happily ever after Bond ending, I guess. That was what Spectre was. It was Bond walking away and getting a happily ever after ending. And so if you want, you can just kind of view it as that's the ending. I think that you can do a good one, right? But we don't get that here. And I do agree that Craig's in particular, like I said, a majority of his movies are obsessed with the idea of loss and kind of grief and getting older and what that does. And so it seems like a somewhat natural point for his movies. I think the execution is mostly fine. If an extreme amount of overkill to really emphasize, he is dead. He didn't get shot. He's dead. So I do enjoy that kind of funny note to it. But yeah, I mean, it is an ending that, again, I think is really emotional. I don't love it, but I think appreciate it for what it is. Which in a lot of ways is sort of my thoughts on No Time to Die. So I think that's really fitting. Trevor, do you have any final thoughts before we head into the wrap up here?
I remember the first time I watched it thinking, wow, Valdo goes like super just like from 0 to 100 with ethnic cleansing at the
fast,
end.
Right? Yeah.
But it's like he kind of seeds it throughout. He talks about kind of like, it's not all completely out of nowhere. It definitely ramps up near the end, but and then goes into overdrive for like his final line before Nomi just kicks him to his death. But it's an easy way to make you want somebody to die, so
100%.
Gives
effective,
gives Nomi a nice little hero moment of like, fuck you, I'm not all right. You just like, I could have taken you in
300 kick off the
but yeah,
thing,
no,
right?
no, you are definitely like it is time to die. Quite literally, she says that. We touched on how great the stairwell fight is. I mean, like, yes. Safin, I guess, is it like we should probably talk about Safin to some degree. I guess we'll have the villains corner.
This is a natural. I guess this could be like a natural transition to villains corner in some ways, right? Like I think I kind of alluded to it last week. I think Daniel Craig largely is not given a lot of great villains. I think Silva's kind of the big exception. Lashif is great as well, but just not enough of him in the movie. And then I think Safin is largely in the same vein as like a slightly better Green. I think he's like really kind of whatever.
I mean, I put him,
and like I think
I would certainly put him like well above that. But like, admittedly, like looking at the list, like I know you like a lot of these characters much more than I did anyway.
Put Green.
But like he's not great, but he is.
I think he's fine.
He is.
I didn't
like
rate him that low.
A definitive kind of Bond villain. Like, and I think that's like basically they took the template of Bond villain and said like, okay, so we're gonna give him like scarred face from Poison. We're gonna give him crazy evil lair. We're gonna make him have menacing monologues to Bond's love interest, and then again to Bond. There are like, we're gonna give him a shit ton of henchmen.
Yes.
And a like, I mean, he has very much like a Strongberg, Hugo Drax kind of like monologue plot of like,
it's a weird.
I'm gonna do this thing and it's going to kill lots of people because people really want people want gods to make decisions for them. They don't want to make decisions for themselves. It's like, all right, like go and take another.
That's a weird extrapolation.
Go take another philosophy class, my guy.
Right? Yeah.
Knock yourself out.
All right.
But like and Rami Malek, like basically got cast in this hot off of Bohemian Rhapsody kind of thing. So like I think they were definitely leading into that, and he's fine in the role.
Yeah, I agree.
I like that his real relationship is with. It was with Spectre and with Madeline, and Bond's basically just like collateral damage in all this.
Yeah,
like Bond is just like a nuisance that keeps like a fly that keeps getting in the ointment,
popping
up. So like I like his way in, really, and also just the twisted mindset of, obviously he showed up at Madeline's house when she was a kid, while he was also a kid. We don't see him behind the mask or whatever, but like, realistically, he's also very young in that that like prologue sequence, homicidal, and then has this like twisted change of heart to save Madeline, and now this she's able to kind of like call in the favor of this life debt on him or whatever. Like it's whatever, it's silly, but yeah, it's he is far better than so many of the forgettable ones that that make up, I would say, like the bottom half of the list kind of thing. If only for like how much they're leaning into the villain formula on this one, versus like, all of the ones that are just like crazy billionaires that have money to do these things. Like, this is one who actually like, is very passionate about the poison, and and
he's very passionate,
and has all the fun little facts about like, if you eat that plant it'll kill you kind of stuff. But then he's also like very blasé, and like he goes through all the trouble of like taking Matilda, and then as soon as she like bites his hand, he's like, all right, fine, you're on your own.
Yeah, that was there are weird things like that in the movie, but yeah, like I think he really hit the head on the nail. I think he's very like, all right, like, I don't think he's terrible in the movie, and I think he's also done a little bit of a disservice by like so much of that first act movie basically being Spectre Blofeld related, so like he doesn't really get like a good introduction until like the movie's a good chunk into things, and then he has a bit more of like a classic Bondian like layer scheme. So like he's not, for example, like Franz Sanchez or Goldfinger, who are in like the entire movie. That is not his character, and I think I like when we get a bit more of the villains. Even Silva is in a good chunk more of it than him, or Lashif. Obviously, when he's in the movie, he's in that movie, and so I think in that vein, it's kind of a disappointment. Like, you get someone who is Rami Malek at like the peak of Rami Malekness, and he's a little underutilized. But I think his character is mostly like fine, and just sort of like, all right, yeah, like in the scheme of 25 Bond movies, you were like smack in the middle somewhere, right? Like, you were like, throw a dart and you're pretty much there. And like, that's ultimately mostly fine, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the list right now. I don't know what is exactly.
I throw him like around Elliot Carver range, probably.
Where's Elliot Carver?
A few down from your cursor.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think, in fact, I think Elliot Carver is a great example of who I think he is, right? Like, as someone who like really likes Tomorrow Never Dies, like we both do, and then the villain is kind of like, you're not the best part of this movie. I think it's a great description of Rami Malek as Sefin in this film. Yeah, is Elliot Carver. I think that is super great. I'll give him a slight edge, if for no other reason than the fact that he gets a terrifying scene in the beginning of the movie. Truly terrifying.
Just straight up Michael Myers. He's just a Michael Myers bad guy. Survives being shot by young Madeline multiple times. I did. That's another thing I did appreciate
him, like,
on the
rising
second
from the dead like Frankenstein.
Well, like on the second viewing, like I appreciate he is wearing like a bulletproof vest, or seems to be wearing a bulletproof vest. And so it was just kind of like it took the wind out of him when he goes falling off a second story landing kind of thing. But yeah, like he showed up there clearly expecting Mr. Wint was going to be there and he was going to have to put up more of a fight. So like I
Right.
appreciate it's not just like, oh yeah, he should absolutely be dead because this little girl shot him multiple times in the chest. So yeah, it's another thing.
He's
Like
ready to go.
the first time I remember kind of walking away being like, he kind of did seem like just Michael Myers horror villain kind of thing. But,
Yeah, he's Frankenstein. Don't worry about it.
yeah.
Trevor, in terms of Billie Eilish's theme, where do you kind of have thoughts on that for this movie?
There's another one. I do not have thoughts. I like it.
I've already forgot.
It came on and I was
Sure.
I was like, hey, it's Billie Eilish, who like I feel like I've seen Billie Eilish more than I've ever heard Billie Eilish. Like I know a couple.
Sure.
I know she has like a couple big songs that I've heard many, many times. I couldn't tell you what those songs are because admittedly, I just don't listen to the radio really.
Music
so
much, right? Yeah.
so yeah, I just like I know her as a personality more than I know her music, and so this one kind of came on. I was like, oh okay, but I was more drawn in by the like retro stylings of the the homage to those early title sequences and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like it won the Oscar over Encanto, so shout out to that, I guess.
I put it directly below On Your Magic Good Service because I think it's obviously very evocative of that, but I think Louis Armstrong's All the Time in the World is just more beautiful.
So much so that they lean on it at the end as well.
A lot. Yeah, they use that and not the QLab gadgets. Do we have much beyond the nanobots recurring theme, Trev?
Well, there's the stealthy bird plane / sub thing that they fly into. There's the EMP watch, and then there's QDAR, which is radar, but it's gonna map the facility so they can see where they're going and stuff like that. And I love even in that there's like a great Ben Whishaw moment of like Bond is he's the trident looking one. He's like, why did you create them using like Greek symbols if you were gonna have a hard time describing them?
What they are?
Yeah, just make him an X and make her a circle or a square or something like that.
Right,
why a psi and an omega or whatever the other one was? Yeah, it's just fun, but like a fun little bit of tech. I think that was like as I said earlier, like it's silly that the EMP works to blow out the Cyclops' eye, and then immediately James is talking to Q on his earpiece. And it's like, how did that avoid the EMP?
It's a very
pulse?
Small EMP blast, right?
Yeah. And I guess to Q's credit, it hasn't been tested. He doesn't know how powerful it's going to be or what it's going to do. So maybe it was just a range of 6 inches.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. Trevor, what are your final thoughts in Rankin's interview of No Time to Die?
Ultimately, I really, really like No Time to Die as a Bond movie in and of itself, but especially as like a closure to the Daniel Craig arc that we've got with this. So it's up there. It's certainly doesn't reach the highs of Casino Royale or Skyfall because those were just such incredible standouts. But I think this, because it's giving me something that I hadn't really gotten in a Bond movie before, of like an ending for this character. I really like appreciated that a lot. And then I appreciated just a lot of other factors and elements of this. So I actually put this in at number 3. This goes.
Do you really above GoldenEye?
Above GoldenEye, yeah. Like GoldenEye.
Wow.
While I will love like the Alec and James relationship of GoldenEye, I think there's just a lot of GoldenEye that, for me, isn't as well made as I want it to be. It's just nostalgia driven, really, for me at this point. Whereas this is, I think, a well made movie that has a lot of great elements to it, and serves as a, like, if you take out Quantum of Solace and Spectre, like, this is a nice end of a trilogy of really good
movies, right?
Craig movies for me. And even throwing in Quantum of Solace and Spectre, this is a great, ending of a pentology, in a way that I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, this is I really had a good time with it. And yeah, I fully, recognize that it
Very
does have
cool.
some flaws, and on
Right.
any other day, I might be like, oh, actually, I did maybe like some of those, Timothy Dalton ones better, or Goldeneye better, or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Right
while I'm
now, and I
riding high
appreciate that.
on Daniel Craig,
Yeah.
this was a nice ending and send off to Daniel Craig's Bond.
Well, you'll have a few weeks to think about it and make your final ranking, so you got some time. Yeah, that very exciting. Okay. We'll save your final rankings for obviously our final episode. But very excited for right now. For me, I'm
Well,
not as hot on it, obviously.
just to jump in there, I do want to just kind of go through my top five at this point.
Do it.
It is
Do
so
it.
it's Skyfall, Casino Royale, No Time to Die, GoldenEye, and License to Kill. So that's
It's a great set of
three
movies.
Craigs, a Brosnan, and a Dalton.
Great set of movies. I'm not quite as high on it as you are. I think it largely kind of falls where I kind of had it thought it would. It's so tough. It's such a weird movie. There's like so much I like and don't like. Ultimately, I would probably put it right now. I'm gonna put it right below Tomorrow Never Dies and above License to Kill on my list. So it would be, I think, number 11, right outside the top 10. I think that's right.
That is admittedly higher than I thought you were going to have it, based on a little thing I have on my side of things. I thought you were going to have it down under Thunderball, but
no, I don't. I do like Thunderball, but again, like I think there's an argument to be made that as I've talked before about the fact that like I think Daniel Craig, for me at least, has two really spectacular films, two movies that I don't like as much, one in particular, and then one movie that I think is sort of like smack in the middle of that, and that movie is No Time to Die. I think it is like his only good movie, not great, not bad, and I think that what I said about Spectre when we did that one last week was it's not my least favorite Bond movie. It's low, but it's not my least favorite Bond movie. But it's like one of the ones that I would least want to watch again. I said something similar for like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, right? Like I wouldn't want to watch that one again, but it's not the worst Bond movie. No Time to Die is sort of weird, where it's like there are absolutely parts of this movie I would want to watch again and again and again, right? Like the Cuba stuff with Paloma is great. The final like assault sequence is really great. I could put that like stairwell sequence on every day for the rest of my life and still be entertained. And then there are parts that I definitely don't want to watch again and again and again, either because they're super emotional, like the actual ending with James and Madeline and Matilda, or because I just don't like them as much, like chunks of the pre-title sequence. And so it's sort of like an all over the map movie for me, kind of up and down. But I do think that it does what it does well. I like the idea that we get a Craig send-off. And obviously, this isn't going to be our final list. We're going to have some time to kind of sit on things and come back and change it. License to Kill is also great, so I also could just put it above. I mean, I could also switch that just because License to Kill is a great movie. But I feel good about that right now. I feel like it being right outside my top 10 feels right for where I'm at right now. I don't love it like a lot of the top 10 movies are, but I like it, and I think it's just a really well-made movie, right? Like a little bit like I said for Skyfall. And in fact, you can read in my Skyfall review, which has already gone live by the time you listen to this podcast. I don't necessarily think Skyfall is the most fun out of Skyfall, Casino Royale, and Goldfinger, right? Out of like that kind of like holy trinity of Bond films for me. But it just does every single thing it seeks out to do exceptionally well, that there's just no way you can't just be like, this is just an incredible film. I think that's sort of what No Time to Die does, right? Like even when I don't love it, it just largely does most of what it's trying to do really well on a technical level. It's got goofs, it's got silly things. In some sense, it is like the most modern Bond movie in the aspect of like there are a lot of weird, goofy things about this movie in some ways, but like it's largely just really good. And so I would have it at number 11 on my list, and my current top 5 would be Skyfall, Goldfinger, Casino Royale, Goldeneye, and Live and Let Die. So we share 3 of the top 5 movies.
Yep. That just reminded me. One thing
mm-hmm.
I did want to shout out is this is another one that maybe not to the heights of Skyfall, but there were a lot of moments in this where I was like, I really dig the lighting and the production design, be it the Cuba sequence or specifically the boat after Cuba, where like everything's in red, or you get under when you get below deck and everything's like just blues as they're filling up with water kind of stuff, and the the lights and whatnot. And yeah, they're just a lot of like cool, like the design of the Hannibal Lecter-esque cage that they bring Blofeld out in the like it's just this like stark concrete room is like a cool design. The design of the lair I think is very particularly really cool. Especially like
very Ken Adams-esque.
Yeah, very Ken Adams-esque. The repurposing of the missile silo into this like Japanese garden kind of vibes, and like trying to make beauty out of this thing of war is I think like a cool element that they don't spend a ton of time really like highlighting and focusing on, but like it's just a cool design element in the background of a lot of those shots in the final sequence. And especially like the water, poison bioweapon farm or whatever, where like you have all of those people in like red biohazard suits with the white, like neon lights kind of thing, illuminating that area. Like that's just a phenomenally cool set. So yeah, just a lot of really cool production design choices in this one that I did want to give a shout out to.
Agreed. A lot of the shots in Norway are really beautiful and sweeping as well. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. Some of the car chase scenes.
I did have a note in there of like, as the car chase begins, they're they're driving along the like beautiful sunny hills and mountains of Norway, and then they go into the Silent Hill fog of a forest kind of thing. Right. It's like, all right, great. Things got really dark really quick here. But it's cool. It's still we didn't spend a ton of time on that apart from like the Logan Ash element of it, but like that's another sequence that is almost in the vein of like the Home Alone stuff of like Bond using the terrain and using the environment to outsmart and take out the people, and also just very, very ruthlessly, like when he flips a truck and then just like pinpoint accuracy shoots the driver and the passenger through the windshield. So he's like, all right, nobody's coming at that one, I'm good. Taking out the guy on the motorcycle with the winch and then just shooting him dead as well to like seal the deal. Just lots of brutality in there because they've come for his family. He doesn't necessarily know they're his family, but they're his family kind of thing. So
I agree, it's excellent. Bond on Bond, we're going to hold off for next week because we're going to do a whole thing on all the various Bonds for the last episode. So you can hold your thoughts on that. So that takes us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching and or listening if you are walking around while listening to this on YouTube. If you like what you heard, you can go over to youtube.com/thatnerdy site where you should already be on this YouTube exclusive series. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a little comment, and tell us what you thought on No Time to Die. Did you like the decision to obviously kill off Felix, have James die at the end of the movie? What did you think of having Bond have a child and Matilda? Did you like that idea? Did you like the pre-title sequence? Please let me know all of your No Time to Die thoughts. This is the Bond movie that I've had the least amount of things I've been able to read or watch about over the years just due to its recency. So I would love to hear your thoughts on No Time to Die. Outside of that, you can also go over to thatnerdysite.com and check out all the latest reviews, features, and content over there, including all the podcasts that go live, as well as the written review version of this show as well. You can go find Trevor at Trevor J. Starkey on the internet. Trevor, anything that you want to plug or shout out?
I will give a shout out to what, if I'm reading the schedule correct, will be next week's That D Plus show, where we'll sit down and talk about the wrap up of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series.
That checks out.
Should be,
go watch that if that's right.
That should be ending here in June, end of June. So yeah, that should be, I think, the next If I'm right on my schedule, this episode will go live June 18th. Obi-Wan Kenobi goes out to
right.
June 22nd is the final episode there, and we'll have that D Plus show June 24th. So go check out whatever we're talking about on that D Plus show.
I agree. Go check all that out. You can go find me at LeftyLoggy, at LeftyLoggy, LOGGY. We're doing one last one a little bit early in advance here. So yeah, time's a little wonky again. But go check out that D Plus show for sure. Go check out the premiere discussion of Obi-Wan Kenobi. That definitely is out. You can go check out as you get ready for the series finale of Obi-Wan Kenobi. You can also go check out that Nudie Site show, that News You Care About, and also Let's Plays we have going live Tuesdays and Thursdays from Trevor and Cameron's Friday Night Dying Lights Let's Play series that will never end. Don't worry. Go check out all that goodness over there. Finally, you can go find That Nerdy Site at That Nerdy Site all across the internet. For myself, for Trevor, for all of us here at That Bond Show, we will return one last time.